What's more surprising, Caitlin's fame exploding the way it has and when it has, or the reaction to Caitlin's fame exploding the way it has and when it has?
I don't, I don't know. That's a really good question. It's all fascinating, right? There's the fact that it's happening within 2025 America, and so that carries with it its own baggage, its own burdens of a racial element, of a gendered element, of an empowering of women element. The fact that whenever there has been growth in women's sports, and frankly any sort of feminist growth as a whole, there is always a backlash. I guess here's what I'll say. The reason why it's less surprising is that every time you see women's basketball grow in this country, there is a backlash to it. And
Yeah.
when we see the gap between men's and women's basketball, I think people fail to realize in a lot of instances, this is a reflection of conscious choices. So you go back to 1891, and James Naismith has built this new game called basketball. And by 1892, women are playing it at Smith College. And by 1896, Stanford and Cal are playing against one another in women's basketball. 5 years after James Naismith comes up with the game, and it's a sold out crowd, and you have people banging on the ceiling to get let in. That's how big the demand is. But unlike men's basketball, instead of watering it, what you see is a bunch of colleges banning women's varsity basketball at the collegiate level, and a pushback against this time and time and time again. And so many of these things that happen in women's basketball happen sometimes by accident, sometimes by happenstance, but the pushback is always deliberate. And it's something we're definitely going to have to keep a close eye on now and going forward.
Yeah, how does the WNBA balance kind of celebrating this star and talent that they have in Caitlin Clark while also dealing with the influx of toxic conversations that has stemmed from Clark to really no fault of her own?
Well, I think it's both. Listen, I don't think you can proactively do a ton. I think you can make sure that there is a zero tolerance policy, right? This element of if someone is coming into your WNBA space and spouting racist things, if they're in the court, you make sure that they are thrown out of the game. You make sure they don't come back. Social media, I don't think anyone's figured out how to fix that, but you simply make sure and take whatever tools are at your disposal to protect going forward. And there's this duality to it that honestly for a lot of long timers is an element of sadness. The WNBA was in many ways a safe space, and I don't mean that people use that phrase in a denigrating way, which I think is stupid. I think it is a safe space in the sense that it was largely untouched by the broader culture, and now the broader culture is buying in, and that's the result. As a result, you're seeing 9-figure deals being signed by the WNBA as opposed to 7-figure deals and 6-figure deals. And so that's going to lead to the W being able to grow, develop, reach a larger audience, but also that larger audience is a reflection of, where America is now as well. And to tar anyone in all groups is a really silly thing, but making sure that there is a focus and understanding and work to protect the safety and well-being of your players as you do it is something the WNBA is going to have to face the same way that all these other leagues that are within the broader culture need to face at the same time. It's not something that has an easy answer, but I do think that people who are coming out and saying the WNBA has failed here, the WNBA, as near as I can tell, has managed to take Caitlin's popularity and the popularity and growth of the league as a whole, which, let's reiterate, predates Caitlin coming in, although Caitlin took what was an arrow that went this way and goes straight up, and has turned it into a media rights deal that's going to help fund greater expansion and expansion fees that are going to near $1 billion. Now they've got to get a collective bargaining agreement done the right way, and that's happening as we speak, that negotiation taking place. But the league has put itself in position for long-term sustainability and growth. And I don't really know what else people could have asked for from the WNBA when it comes to that from a financial perspective. From an experiential perspective, everyone's figuring that out as far as I can tell. They haven't figured out on a broader American context how to make things safer for all of us. And so certainly the WNBA is not immune from those pressures either.